Hello and welcome to Navajo County Connection. I'm Dawnafe Whitesinger, District 5 Supervisor, and grateful to have you here watching us today. As we wrap up or we head into the month of May, it's a great opportunity for us to look back, especially for teachers and students, as we're wrapping up the school year. And graduation is among us, and we're getting ready to celebrate graduations. And we wanted to take some time to talk to some young people and talk to them about maybe some of the things that they're learning in the classroom. And today we have special guests from Dishchii'bikoh High School from the government class. And they'll be talking to us a little bit about what's happening or what they've learned in government. So welcome, young men. Welcome. Before we get started, I want to give you the opportunity to introduce yourselves. So we'll go ahead and start with Autry.
Okay. Hello, my name is Autry. I'm 18 years old, and I'm a senior at Dishchii'bikoh High School.
Kurt Del Rosario. I'm 16 years old, and I'm a senior of Dishchii'bikoh High School too.
Well, welcome, gentlemen. I appreciate you being here today. As we're talking about the school year, how long have you been taking government?
We've been taking government since like August.
So you're taking a year course that's probably required for graduation?
Yes.
Yeah. And during your time, I guess, of taking that course, what are some of the topics that were of interest to you or that were important to you?
The topics that were important to me was learning about the government and how it is split into 3 branches.
Kurt?
Yeah, foreign policy to the Constitution, like as what he said, maybe like the Bill of Rights too, because that's important.
So you've gotten a nice overview of, I guess, what the government system looks like, not only, and from my understanding, not only from a federal position, but also from the state level and from tribal level and from the local level as you looked at the county. And when we talk about the executive branches, why is that so important?
It is important because, like, checks and balances, they check each branch, so not one branch gets too much power.
And why do you think that's important to, I guess, us on a national level?
Because if one branch gets too much power, the whole system will be corrupt. I
really appreciate the fact that you understand why the branches are so important. And as when we talk about government, and we were talking about that a little bit before the show started, that, you know, that we understand, that we can see the importance of why we should learn about that. So why is it important to learn about government?
It affects our daily lives throughout history, from like paying taxes or maybe like building roadways, for example, or like budget cuts.
Those are certainly good points. Are there any other reasons why we should learn about government?
It shows our relations with other countries and like how the state government, the county government, and tribal government are working with the national government and stuff.
And it's important, and you're right, and as you know, as you get older and you participate in the world in a sense, that you become knowledgeable about how decisions are made. So you made a point of roadways. How are roadways created? How do we get to decide which roads are maintained and which roads aren't? Who oversees that jurisdiction? All of those things have been part of your conversation and certainly important as you grow older, so you can be able to advocate for whatever community you live in, or say you want to participate in government in some capacity, that you have some knowledge level of doing so. So I understand that you have watched a few of the episodes in your classroom of County Connection. Yeah. What are some of the things that you have gotten from it?
Some things we've gotten.
Or some of the topics that you might remember.
Some topics that got my interest were like budget cuts.
And that's a recent conversation that we've been having here on County Connections, and I know that it's something that's been in the newspaper for quite some time. Were there any other topics that I guess were discussed in your classroom?
how the tribal government works with like the state government, for example, maybe.
Tribal relations with state relations, all of those are important topics and certainly things that we have discussed. So as you're moving into your future and you're thinking about government, how will you continue to participate in government, or do you have an aspiration to?
Yeah, we like participate in it daily, like watching the news, see what goes on in the nation and locally in the state.
That's certainly a good point. Being an active and participating citizen. We want to, when I'm out in the public and meeting with different people, not everybody is completely knowledgeable about government systems and how they work. And participating by increasing your knowledge is very important, so I can appreciate that. All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate you being here today. When we come back, we're going to have 2 other students from Dishchii'bikoh High School that will be talking about their government class. Welcome back. We have 2 new students joining us, Trindle Curtis and Lauren Foghorn. Welcome. We certainly appreciate you being here today. They are also both seniors from Dishchii'bikoh High School and have been taking the government class as well. And, I want to go back to why I wanted students to be here, that I thought it was important for the community to know or to hear about the things that you're learning, and to meet some of our students who are in our local community, bright students. And so thank you for being here. I certainly appreciate it. We're talking about government, so what are some of your favorite topics or some of the things that stood out to you when you were learning in your government class?
What stood out to me was the economics.
The economics, and why?
It's interesting because of how it stables our government and how much resources and money we use from it.
It is quite true when we talk about the economic engine of the United States, that we are not just only impacting our own economy, but we're impacting the global economy, which is kind of, a big idea, and certainly speaks to, I guess, the power of the United States and why those branches are so important. We talked about the checks and balances. So we talked a little bit about natural resources. I understand you talked about that from the tribal perspective. What were some of those?
Kind of like survival and resources of the forest.
Forest resources.
Yeah.
So we talk about timber, we talk about water resources that are so important. All of those things not only impact on human survival, but are important for economy. So those things are certainly important. And I understand that you watch this though in your classroom, County Connections, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. What were some of the topics that you learned or got from those shows?
Well, what I got was about the local issues, what's happening in the district.
And that's important. And that's what, we hope that we're able to communicate those things, that we want to use this as a resource to those who are learning about government, trying to keep themselves involved in understanding what's happening in the community, and talking about the topics that are local, like having you on the show. That's important, that people understand, the variety of perspectives that come from our local community. And, we didn't talk too much about the tribe, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but was there something about tribal government that you might want to talk about? Or that stood out in a way that maybe it wasn't related to state government or the national government? Lauren, you brought up a good point at the beginning, before taping, where you talked about the presidential election. President and the requirements of running for the elected position. I kind of it's interesting how it works with all of the delegates across the country, and then you have the different caucuses. So there are a lot of different components to running for or having the presidential election. So I thought that was a good point. And I think it's important for us to be aware of all of those processes. But thank you so much. I appreciate the two of you joining me today. And congratulations. I understand that you will be graduating from Dishchii'bikoh High School and going out into the world. So good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
That wraps up this segment. We'll come back in just a moment with Adam Wolfe, who is our county communications manager, and he will be talking to us about our the financial position or standing, the conversation that we've had around the county. So we'll be back in just a moment. Welcome back to Navajo County Connection. We have Adam Wolfe joining us from the county, and he's going to be talking to us a little bit about the budget. But before we do that, we're certainly I know that we've had you on the show before, but not everybody tunes in, right? And so we want to make sure that everybody gets an opportunity to know you. So why don't you introduce yourself and tell the community a little bit about yourself?
All right. Well, I function as the communications manager for the county. So a lot of what my job is just actually reaching out to the public and helping them stay informed on situations like our current budget challenges, or last summer there was the fire, and really just any situation like that the public needs information. I try to be the one that provides that to them. So, that's the main function of my job, but I also do a lot of the social media. So basically I'm always interacting with the public, and it can be a lot of fun. As far as just my personal life, I actually grew up in the area. I grew up in Pine Top Lakeside, went to Blue Ridge High School. I left for about 8 years, and then found my way back with this position that I started a little over a year ago. So it's been a lot of fun since I came back.
Great. Well, welcome to the show, and certainly welcome to the county. You've been a great asset and resource to our county, so I'm grateful that you're part of our team. A big part of community discussion and recent discussion has been about our budget and where we are with our budget. And we talk about, I guess, the shortfalls, but it's become a bigger conversation than just our local conversation and how it's impacting us locally. But before we get into some of those topics, maybe you can give us a little recap of where we are.
Yeah. So the year started with some bad news regarding the coal industry, and that's really what started this process. So up in northern Navajo County, we have the Kayenta mine, which feeds the Navajo generating station outside Page. Well, the Navajo generating station announced that it was going to close, likely by 2019. There's still discussions going on there, but that's the likely circumstance, which of course would result in the closure of the Kayenta mine up north. The Cholla power plant outside Joseph City also starting the winding down process. It's just the industry as a whole is really seeing some challenges, and that's just the price of natural gas dropped. There's just more efficient ways to produce energy, more cost-effective ways, and from a business perspective, you can understand why these private industries would want to move away from it. Unfortunately for the county, it means heavy losses to our sales and property tax revenues. As well as just our, property values, things like that. So an example of that would be when the Cholla power plant closed one of its 4 generators, we saw a $30 million drop in property value, which directly translated to $200,000 in property tax collected. So that's part of the issue. The other part is just, raising state cost shifts. They've been going up since the recession of 2008. But we're really starting to feel that now. For the last almost decade, we've been leaning, things such as, we haven't been replacing vehicles. We've cut 12% of our total workforce, and mostly that's just not filling vacant positions. Unfortunately, there are some situations such as the cutting of the child support program and the juvenile detention center recently. That will result in over 30 jobs being lost, unfortunately. but it's just the reality we're facing right now. They are tough economic times, and the county is seeing it more so than the cities because we're more reliant on those industries. Mm-hmm. That's kind of how we got to where we are now.
And it is a difficult balance in a sense. When we look at the economic engine of the state, they're sitting in the position of growing. And when we look at rural Arizona, the picture doesn't look the same. And so we certainly are feeling that now and being proactive in making decisions that will, I guess, maybe have a positive impact in the future. Certainly we don't want to be in these positions. And I think one of the things that maybe those who might be new to the conversation, when we talk about omitting child support services, or we talk about taking away the juvenile detention center, that there was a lot of thought process. And certainly when we think the programming that is important for our community members, that's still being provided, that juveniles will still continue if they need the support and need to be incarcerated, that we are partnering with other counties to provide those resources, and individuals who are looking to receive or need help with child support, that the state will continue to provide those services. So it's not an elimination of services.
Right, and that's a good point. We are working with our local, regional, state partners to make sure these services are still in the community. So a great example would be the child support program. That's actually not a county mandated program. So one of the reasons it was cut was it was mostly just cost to the county, but it's actually a state-run program. So that service will now go back to the state through the state attorney general's office. And they're actually planning to bring on some of our staff that we had to cut. So we actually got some good news there. There's still some opportunity. That's obviously still being worked out, and the transition won't actually take over until July. Mm-hmm. But we were able to receive some good news that they do want to bring on some of those people because they do know the area. They do know the cases, the people. So that was great news there. And with the Juvenile Detention Center, we'll be partnering with either Pinal County or Graham County to house those juveniles. And what makes that very beneficial is they have the resources to be able to provide, better counseling, classes, things like that. The whole point of a juvenile going into a detention center is to rehabilitate, so they don't have to come back. There are better resources available in these partnering counties to really provide the help they need. So we're actually we're excited to see the benefit from that, not only from a cost-saving perspective, but for the benefit of the youth going in. We really think that'll be a good thing for them.
And all of those decisions go back to teamwork, to partnership, in developing the ideas from data, and being really sound about, okay, what is the best decision moving forward? And I feel like we were able to do that on a team level. So I look forward to seeing some of those changes. Certainly, again, I go back to, we don't want to be in that position of making those challenging decisions, but I think that if anything, we were in a good position to make sound choices. So when we talk about choices and looking at the future, what are some of those things that the administrative team is doing or looking at?
Well, since our March meeting where the major choices such as the child support and juvenile detention center were decided, we've actually made department changes within the administration staff. So we'll actually be cutting over $250,000 from just the admin budget, which is a significant portion of that budget. What that's going to result in is restructuring of the staff, some shelving of responsibilities, but no services are going to go away. It will result in the elimination of 2 vacant positions, though. So moving forward, even if we come to kind of an economic standstill, there's 2 positions we're not going to be able to fill because of this restructuring. But again, it really helps as far as the overall budget right now to try to balance it by saving more than $250,000.
And if we're looking at, I guess, personnel, what are some of the other things, not only personnel, but certainly other issues that were, consolidation of buildings is another conversation. What are some of the other things that we can be looking at in the future?
So what the county is planning to do is we're going to lessen our footprint across the region. So we're dedicated to maintaining those services we provide, especially the ones that are mandated to us. We're not going to stop providing services. We are going to consolidate the areas in which we operate from. So we've actually already started that process. We did close the Pine Lake facility in Pine Top. And those services that were in that building have now been relocated. Most are coming to the White Mountain facility in Show Low, right on the Deuce. But our sheriff's substation is now in the Timber Mesa Lakeside fire station, which is very beneficial. Really helps them get to those areas. And our volunteer sheriffs are actually now up at Pine Top Fire within the country club. So we were able to utilize our local partners there to make sure everything is housed so we can still provide those services. But that likely won't be the last building to close. But again, we're consolidating into certain areas, but those services will still be provided to all the communities we represent.
I think, understanding the complete process and knowing, I guess, the beginning conversations and to where we are now, one of the most important things that has continually come up is that we want to make sure that the public is informed about why the decisions are made and maybe even how some of those decisions are made. And so one, we go to print and looking at newspapers to provide some of that information, social media, we look at news outlets, and utilizing these types of engines to create, I guess, that transparency, not only for transparency purposes, but I guess providing information that shows the public that, we understand that it's our responsibility to provide those services, and we're not going to eliminate those services, but how we provide them might look a little differently, or where it's provided might be in a different capacity. So those thought processes are very important to how we got to where we are now.
Yeah, and we've really been trying to reach the public in every way we can. We've been very open as far as media, as far as public meetings. We welcome those conversations. We welcome the input. Even as we move forward, we're going to see most of our cuts will now come from departments directly. So it will be their restructuring their decisions. Mm-hmm. But we made sure that conversation stayed open. We made sure the directors were able to come in. If employees had concerns, they were able to come in and address them. But we reached out as far as social media, print media, television. We've made in-house videos to try to explain things. We've really done all we can to help the public understand, to really educate everyone on what is happening, because it is important that they understand, these services are not going to go away. We are dedicated to our residents. We function as, a part of the state, but if we're not helping our residents, that's all we're here for, Mm-hmm. We are here to benefit them. So everything we do is to make sure they feel the least amount of impact from these decisions. Internally, it's a painful process. These are tough decisions. These aren't, as you said, this is a situation we want to be in. We don't want to be cutting positions, but we're to the point where, we've trimmed everything we possibly could, and this is now what we have to be doing. Mm-hmm. But we're hoping that the members of the public don't have to feel this. They don't have to do these same cutbacks, because it's us making those choices. So in the long run, it will benefit us, and we're going to have a balanced budget, not just for next year, but for years to come, and that's the important thing. So when the economy starts to come back, when we bring in new industry, which we're always working to do, we're balanced. We don't have to, we're not so desperate to bring it in that, it causes more chaos when it comes in. We'll be in a good position from that point on, and the public will always see that we are here for them.
Well, I certainly appreciate that, Adam. I think, in understanding the team and working with the team, that has been priority to us. Educating, being able to provide a balanced budget, being able to be fiscally responsible in making, I guess, proactive decisions, and rather than being reactive in the sense of waiting for those particular, for Choyo to shut down, or if it's Navajo generating station, certainly we see that in the near future, and making decisions now to be able to impact the future in a positive way. And I think this goes back to our student government class. When we talk about why it's important for people to be active participants, active citizens. It's part of this process of gaining knowledge so you can have an understanding of why decisions are made. So, we learned a little bit today about, government and its why it's so important to us. And when we talk about these, I guess, changes, we can see that in action. So.
Yeah, and it's great to see the young generation being involved because, inevitably this all becomes their role at some point. Generations pass it down. So the more they can be involved, the more they can better understand what's happening. The better we can try to set it up for them, and then they can just carry it forward, and then that process just stays smooth, as opposed to these ups and downs, which will always happen with economy and things like that. But as far as the government services and things, if we can get those younger generations involved, I mean, it's a bright future.
Certainly. So thank you, Adam. I appreciate you joining me today. Thank you for joining us today on Navajo Connections, or Navajo County Connections. I'm District 5 Supervisor Dawnafe Whitesinger, and those of you who are celebrating graduations, congratulations to you from Navajo County.